I have a secret. I am not actually human. Or rather, up until a week ago, I wasn't. Back then, I lived in a cold but gentle, deep blue ocean. The most important thing in my daily routine was to curl my body into a bed of kelp, belly up, soaking in the sun while drifting along with the waves. But on a stormy night, a massive wave swept me into a deep, dark whirlpool. When I woke up, the icy seawater against my back had turned into a soft mattress. The thick fur on my body was gone, replaced by smooth skin and two impossibly long legs. I had crossed over. I had become a human girl in her 20s. Despite turning into a human, I found it completely impossible to shake off my old, occupational habits. For instance, after moving into an apartment in this coastal city, whenever I felt anxious, tired, or when my skin felt a bit dry, my immediate reflex was to cup my cheeks with both hands and rub them vigorously. Once, while waiting for my microwaved food in front of a convenience store mirror, I was frantically rubbing my face until my cheeks were bright red. The clerk happened to see me. Looking at me with a mix of sheer shock and deep concern, he asked if I had a toothache. I couldn't explain to him that in the world of sea otters, this is called grooming. It's to keep the fur on our faces waterproof and warm. It was our most sacred ritual. Also, I never carry a bag when I go out. Because in my armpit, in my instinctual memory, there should be a loose pouch of skin under my left forelimb. That was my pouch of wonders. Back then, I always hid my favorite, most reliable, lucky stone, the one I used to crack open shells, right inside it. Now that I'm human, I still subconsciously reach for my left armpit, only to find nothing, of course. For a sense of security, I now tightly stuff my favorite lip balm and a few coins into the inner left pocket of my coat. But what bothered me the most was sleeping. Human beds are large and safe, but lying on one, I always felt like I was being washed away by ocean currents. That helpless, floating sensation gave me insomnia every single night. Until I met him. His name is Hang. He's a conservationist at the city's coastal aquarium, and he also happens to be my next-door neighbor. The first time we truly spoke was at a seafood restaurant by the beach. That day, I ordered a plate of grilled oysters and a plate of clams. When the seafood was served, the waiter forgot to bring the shucking tools. Hang was sitting at the table right next to mine. Under his horrified gaze, I habitually leaned back, nearly flattening myself into a straight line on the chair, and placed a massive oyster right on my chest. My right hand reached into my left pocket, pulled out my lucky pebble, raised it high, aimed at the oyster on my chest, and prepared to smash it down with all my might. Wait a minute. Hang rushed over in one stride and snatched the stone from my hand. He was breathing heavily, his face painted with pure disbelief. "Miss, what are you doing? That's your ribcage, not an anvil. If you smash it like that, you'll get internal bleeding." I froze, staring at him blankly. My belly, no, my chest, wasn't it naturally meant for cracking shells? Seeing my innocent and utterly confused face, Hang sighed helplessly. He turned to the counter to grab an oyster shucker, expertly opened all the clams and oysters for me, and slid them over. "Eat up," he smiled. His sun-kissed, bronze skin made his teeth look exceptionally white. It's my first time seeing someone eat seafood exactly like a sea otter. My heart suddenly skipped a beat. A sea otter? He knew about sea otters? We talked for a long time that night. Hang told me so much about the ocean, and he said his favorite animals were sea otters. "They are truly wonderful creatures," Hang said, holding a beer and looking out at the distant coastline. "When they sleep, to keep from being drifted apart by the currents, they have to hold each other's hands. Don't you think that's the ultimate form of romance? In this boundless ocean of fate, I only dare to close my eyes when I am holding on to you." I looked at his profile as the sea breeze drifted through his hair. At that exact moment, I felt an overwhelming urge to hold his hand. From that day on, we became friends, or perhaps, something a little more than friends. Hang was a very warm person, but he could be quite careless at times. He often forgot his keys or lost his pens at work. Whenever that happened, I could always magically produce exactly what he needed from my inner left pocket. Once, we were walking along the beach when a stray cat approached us. Hang wanted to play with it but searched all his pockets only to find no treats. I silently reached my hand into the left side of my jacket, fumbled around, and pulled out a sealed cat puree treat. Hang looked at me in amazement. "How do you even have cat treats? Is your pocket Doraemon's magic pouch?" I lifted my chin with a bit of pride. I didn't tell him that in the world of sea otters, owning a skin pouch that can hide good things is a symbol of strong survival skills. Though I had turned into a human, I still kept the treasures I collected in this city inside it, the tissues Hang had used, the soda tab he gave me, and the pebble that had almost crushed my ribs. Our favorite thing to do was going to the beach to watch the sunset. Whenever I got close to the sea, my instincts would awaken. I couldn't help but crouch on the sand, cupping the seawater with both hands to wash my face, and then frantically rubbing my hair and cheeks. Hang would always sit beside me, quietly watching, his eyes full of warmth and amusement. The way you rub your face is exactly like that sea otter at the aquarium right after its bath. He reached out and gently ruffled the top of my head. How can someone love rubbing their own face this much? Because it keeps me warm. I lowered my head guiltily, but because of his touch, my cheeks flushed even hotter than they did after a vigorous rub. Once, he brought me behind the scenes at the aquarium where he worked. When I saw my fellow otters rolling around in the water, covering their eyes with their paws to look cute, a strange wave of homesickness washed over me. Hang pointed to an otter floating on the water's surface, its front paws pressed tightly against its cheeks. Look, is it trying to be cute? I shook my head and said softly, no, it's not trying to be cute. The palms of their paws don't have fur. After swimming in the freezing water for so long, their paws get cold. It presses its paws against its face because its cheeks are warm, it's using its face to warm up its paws. Hang froze for a moment, turned his head, and looked deeply at me. How do you know that? I just know. I looked away, not daring to meet his eyes. I was afraid he would think I was crazy, and even more terrified that he would find out I was a monster. As time passed, I adapted to human life, but my insomnia grew worse. This city was just too big. The sound of nighttime traffic and the howling wind made me feel like a kite with a broken string, drifting lonely in the invisible night sky, unable to find any kelp to anchor myself to. Until a stormy night in early summer. The thunder was deafening that day, and the lightning turned my room a ghostly white. I curled up in the corner of my bed, wrapping myself tightly in the blanket, shivering uncontrollably. I missed my ocean. I missed the waves that used to hold me safely. Right then, a knock sounded at my door. I opened it, and there stood Hang, half drenched, holding an umbrella. The thunder started out of nowhere, and I remembered you saying you hated the sound of it. He scratched his head a bit awkwardly. Are you okay? Looking into his worried eyes, all the grievances, loneliness, and fear I had bottled up for days exploded at that very moment. Forgetting everything else, I took a step forward and threw my arms tightly around him. Hang's body stiffened for a second, but then he gently patted my back. It's okay, I'm here. He didn't leave that night. He sat by my bedside, keeping me company. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, as that familiar drifting sensation, the feeling that I was about to be washed away by the world, rushed over me once again. I tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. Then, a warm hand reached over in the dark, gently grasping my hand that was left outside the blanket. It was Hang. His eyes were closed, looking as if he was about to fall asleep, but his fingers held on firmly, locking his hand with mine. In that split second, a miracle happened. The loneliness that had drifted in the ocean for hundreds of nights suddenly vanished into thin air. My heart found its anchor, feeling incredibly grounded, just like the days when I used to wrap my body tightly in kelp. Hang, I called softly. He kept his eyes closed, his voice laced with sleepiness. Why are you holding my hand? He blinked his eyes open slightly, looking at me through the darkness, a gentle smile gracing the corners of his lips. Because I'm afraid that once you fall asleep, you'll be washed away by the night of this city. As long as we hold hands, we are both right here. Tears finally rolled down from the corners of my eyes uncontrollably. He had no idea that this was the most beautiful confession a sea otter could ever hear in her entire life. Later on, we got together. I still couldn't break the habit of rubbing my face, so Hang bought the gentlest moisturizing cream and applied it for me every night with his own hands. I still loved stuffing things into my inner pocket, so he gifted me a cargo jacket with countless hidden compartments. I never told him the secret of my crossing, and perhaps I never will in this lifetime. But what does it matter? Today, we came to the beach again. The setting sun painted the ocean surface a golden yellow, and waves lapped against the shore one after another. Holding Hang's hand, I walked step by step toward the water. Hang, I stopped walking. What's wrong? He turned around. I took a deep breath against the sea breeze, reached up with both hands, and just like I had done countless times before, smack, I cupped my own cheeks, rubbing them until they were rosy and bright, and flashed him my most radiant smile. Then, I reached my hand into my left pocket, pulled out the pebble that had almost smashed me when we first met, and placed it into his palm. This is a sea otter's most precious possession in their entire life. I looked at him earnestly. Now, I am giving my lucky stone to you. And my hand. I tightly slid my free hand into his palm, intertwining our fingers. Hang smiled, pulling me into his embrace. The sea breeze was strong and the waves were loud, but I wasn't afraid anymore. Because I knew that in this giant ocean called the human world, I had already found my bed of kelp. As long as we hold hands, no matter where fate drifts us, we will never lose each other.